Hello and welcome to Your Therapist Said What?
This is a place where we are desiring to honor the sacred process of therapy through the intermix of bringing in authentic relationships and conversation through the use of laughter and research.
Welcome to episode 8 of season 1. What is love? Today we will discuss love and different aspects of love and how they affect us emotionally.
Get it? So today we are live streaming. This is interesting. So hang in there with us as we kind of figure out how to do this whole multi-screen business. But yeah, like Sonia said, today we were talking about love, and just kind of what it looks like from our therapeutic, but also lived experience. We will start today's episode off with a check yourself moment, and today we are going to do how you are showing up. So I can begin. I am showing up freshly every time we do this one, freshly unshowered. I gotta get my hair cut today. Yeah, I'm ready for this. I'm feeling excited. It's sunny out. My house is warm. Alex, what about you? How are you showing up today?
Oh, I am slightly freaking out that we're live right now. So, this is my freaking out phase. Yeah.
Very calm.
If it helps you, no one knows about this. And so we have 0 viewers right now. So it's really just live streaming for our own self.
Oh, okay. Less nervous then.
But yeah, that helps
for us.
Hashtag love it. Okay. Sonia, how are you showing up today?
Well, I'm showing up. It's 9 o'clock, so I just rolled out of bed.
Preach.
Yeah. So that's how I'm showing up. Still trying to wake up.
Love that.
We
did a little you what?
Y'all wake up late.
Well, okay.
Yeah. You're supposed to be doing that. That's what practice is all about.
Nico, you'll join me soon. You'll have a kid.
Yeah,
and then you'll
exactly. That's what I was gonna say. You have babies, and we get to pick our own schedule.
Preach. So let's do this thing. We are talking about love. That was my best chance at radio sexy voice. Yeah, what comes to mind for you guys when we say love?
Night at the Roxbury, and just that song, only because we've been singing it all morning. Otherwise, it's like
no more
snuggles on the couch, family activities, alone time.
Sex.
Well, that was just me.
I think of how love looks so different in different cultures. I think of like the telenovela love with the Latino culture, how it's so perfect.
I miss
So and then how I also think of dowries. I'm watching Bridgerton. I'm in the last episode, so then I kind of think of that as well. How love had to be so perfect. How they couldn't even be in the garden, without a chaperone. Jeez, I'd be in trouble. If they had those, I don't know. I don't know how to live like that.
I would be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah, so talking about all the different cultural practices and what what love looks like in different cultures.
Yep.
Yeah.
So maybe we can discuss more of that.
Yeah. So when we bring that up,
what does it look like?
Yeah, exactly.
Like so for Hispanic culture, what does it look like then? What does love look like?
It's very close to Bridgerton, unfortunately.
Seriously?
Well, on the surface.
Okay.
I think on the surface. I mean, I think there's expectations as far as
which generation though. Are we talking in the Hispanic countries themselves, or are we talking those that have immigrated here?
Can I tell you that there's both? Because I would like to think that in Mexico it's still so proper. It just depends on the socioeconomic status that you're in. Some people really follow those proper rules still, which I think it's kind of cheesy, and some people don't. Some people, Mexico has really become more liberal. So there are definitely some proper steps that you're supposed to take, which, recently divorced, and at 50, my mom thinks that I should still take those proper steps if I were to have another boyfriend, which I think is ridiculous. But she's so old school. Very old school.
So I I want to be fair to the generations in this one. I'm trying to have some self-growth for myself. What would be the positive attribute of old school, right? Like what when we talk about love, right? I talk about it from my perspective, but for the perspective of like your mom, what purpose did that serve?
Well, I think it's across all cultures. The purpose that it probably serves is the commitment part of it. You know, you make a commitment, you join into a marriage, and it's not going to be an easy out. You get to know the family. And I think that's the biggest difference from what I see now. Whereas where it's non-traditional, it's like it's an easy in, easy out. You get divorced, you don't like it. I've even heard the term starter marriage, which I was like, wow.
Wait, what is a starter marriage? What?
A starter marriage is just like your starter home, first home. Then you upgrade. You know, you kind of feel for what it's like. And I was really taken back. I heard this term several years ago in one of the classes that I took, and a gentleman was there. Yeah, well, you know, you have to go into class and say a little bit about yourself, which I totally hate. Why the hell are you in grad school? And then you still have to act like you're in kindergarten. But that's a different, you know, stand up.
That's for another day.
Say something about yourself and blah, blah, blah. So this one guy's like, oh, you know, yeah, my second marriage, my starter marriage was blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, dude, really?
That's really kind of immature, and it makes me really grateful I don't work with couples.
He was in the sheriff's department, or he was law enforcement somewhere.
So either way, though, I feel like this is a very immature way to look at your first marriage. I don't feel like it honors it.
I would think more irresponsible.
But Sonia, are you saying that that's a cultural aspect?
No. That was not a cultural aspect.
Oh, okay.
This is just a thing.
Yeah, it's just a thing. Yeah. That's so culturally, I think, and I think that I find this when I've spoken to people from different cultures, it's that commitment part. That commitment part is what is old school, which I think, you know, we're going to stay in this, we're going to work it out, rather than something that is more modern is you don't have to take it, which in certain circumstances, I believe that is true. But I wish that there was more of a commitment still involved in relationships, which I'm not speaking for everyone, but just the general belief.
Well, I think a commitment, but then also a lot of issues that I'm seeing as I'm, you know, doing consultations with therapists is there's this like this communication issue. Married for 20 years, barely talk to each other or can't talk to each other without fighting. And it's like so, I mean, you're married for 20 years together. I'd say that's commitment, definitely. Yeah. But I think with the commitment comes quality. And you got to take that into account. I don't think 20 years of barely talking to each other and arguing all the time is very good quality.
Well, and I think that though, I think I'm getting away from the cultural piece. But that I think, like, if we look at that, that's the difference. Like, some people just don't know, right? People don't know that we can have marriages and they can be life-giving and that we can have great quality, right?
But then, Nico, you're going back into, I think, of the cultural piece that a woman's position in a marriage is not necessarily to voice her opinion. So
which is not a partnership.
Correct. So
right?
Is it safe to say then, from what we've discussed so far, that some of these things of lack of communication and or feeling that you can't communicate, it's still some transgenerational issues that have not been changed, you know, from generation to generation. And I agree with Alex. I think that communication piece, whenever I see couples, it's not there, and they've been together 15 years, 20 years. Another thing is the fact that they think that things are going to change. You know, if there is an issue, the same issue that they're coming into the therapy room for is the same issue that they had before they got married. And I just want to scream, why the hell did you marry them then? If you couldn't work it out then, what makes you think you're going to be able to work it out 15 years later? So that is something also that, I mean,
or in the next marriage.
Okay. The same. So you're saying the same issue coming up every single time.
Well, and the whole idea that I talk with my clients about is that we repeat what we don't repair, right? And if we don't repair our relationship with our parents, it's going to come into our marriage, right? And if we don't repair those difficulties with our spouse, then it's going to come into our next marriage. It's kind of how and again, that's a very general pulled out view of how I view it, but in short, it's like, okay, when did this first show up? It probably wasn't just this marriage.
Nico, so does that mean that you need to repair the issues with your ex-spouse?
No, it means you need to go earlier than your ex-spouse. It means you have to, and again, for my work, that's how it goes.
Okay.
Is
I was gonna say, I know some parents that are not gonna repair.
No, but that's a really important piece. Is we don't. And again, this is informed by my work. So I do a lot of internal family systems, and you guys know that. Mm-hmm. And it's all about how do we learn about these young parts that have been essentially pushed out because they create uncomfortable feelings for us. And in IFS, we don't need mom, dad, or ex-spouse to repair. We need to identify the parts in us that were affected by those folks. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so even, let's say we don't even want to go to childhood, right? I have some clients who are like, we are not going there. And I'm like, get it, girlfriend, we ain't going there. So we still do the repair with the ex, but we don't actually take the ex-spouse and bring them into the session. We talk about like, what would that part have wanted to say, right? The part of you that didn't get to have a voice in your previous marriage, the part of you that didn't get to have a voice in your childhood, what does that part want to scream? And can we let that part be heard? And that's the repair.
So, Nico, that reminds me of group work that we did once. Do you remember? And that was
I think so.
Exactly what happened. Yes. This particular person, it was from their marriage, and it went far back into the relationship with one of the parents. And for me, as you know, and then I'm not only saying that because of this particular case, I'm also saying it because I have worked with a lot of Latino families. That is also cultural. It's more embedded because of the cultural part of it. Yes. You know, this is your position as a woman in society, in a relationship, in your family, as the oldest in your family, in a Latino family. This is what you are to do. It is your duty.
Yes. And to clarify for those that don't know what we're talking about, it's actually this person was taking care of children, grandchildren, parents, like giving everything to the everyone. Family. And, you know, to some extent, extended family outside of her immediate family kind of a thing. And never having any of that for herself.
Yes. So the expectation that she had to take care of everyone and just not complain. And then again, I have to say, it's just not culturally, it's not just in the Latino community. I think that there are a lot of cultures where the woman has to endure. So, I mean, we're pretty much, we get the shitty end of the stick sometimes. Alex, would you agree? I'm not going to male bash.
Amen.
Male bash.
But I think you get to. That's the perspective I want to bring is that, and again, this is something my wife and I we have friends that, we do not see eye to eye with on this topic, right? Okay. Is that we don't get to say, I love you, and that we have a partnership and a marriage, and then not let you have a voice. Fuck that shit. Ooh. Right? And I think women get to push back because they've been suppressed for so many years. Right? And I think we can't talk about love. And first of all, we can't talk about love and deny ourselves. Right? And so that client whom we worked with together was denying herself to give everyone else all this stuff. Right? That's not love because she's not loving herself. But we also can't say, hey, I love you and I'll be in a partnership with you, but you don't get to have a voice. Right? And I know that there are cultural aspects that I need to be pushed back on. And I also cannot take back the perspective that we can't be in love and not have a voice. And I think you get to be mad.
Okay.
Well, I don't think that not having a voice is really fitting with my picture of love either. Mm-hmm. I mean, my picture of love is that there is, you know, between spouses, there is a partnership that's been created where obviously if we're going to talk with love in regards to family or, you know, a different sort of situation, it's going to look a little different because love is really complex and dynamic. But within a romantic relationship, I see it as a partnership, and there has to be the give and take and the communication and listening to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So that brings me to something.
Yo.
I hope I can remember this correctly. So that brings me to a topic that I have recently, both of you know, that I've been interested in, and that's quantum physics. And it is talking about, energy. So if we're going to talk about love and we're going to talk about energy, we can also talk about, say, good vibes and bad vibes. Okay. So we're talking about energy here. So with, according to quantum physics, things that are unseen are actually, everything that we think that was matter is not matter. It's a lot of energy. So if love is energy, this is what it looks like. There's an example that I read about. If you drop 2 rocks into a lake, into water at the same time, and they synchronize together and they will cross, those 2 energies come together and form a larger ripple. So the ripple is not an entity in itself. It's actually the energy coming from those 2 motions. See what I'm saying?
Kinetic energy.
It comes together, becomes stronger. If you drop a rock in the water at one point and then you drop the other one at a different point, then those 2 ripples that are coming together, one's going up while the other one's going down. So basically it cancels each other out. So there is no energy. The energy is canceled. And there is nothing forming greater. See what I'm saying? There's a lot more to it. I'm just trying to simplify the metaphor, I guess. So when a couple is in sync, then their energies come together and you can even feel it. I mean, if you're with someone that you really connect with, that you really vibe with, and there's a good vibe, you see them and you automatically just feel happy. When you're with someone that does not, that, there's more like one's on one page, the other one's on the other page, then coming together, your energies kind of cancel out and you're just kind of dull. So it's not just, what you feel. And I think that relationships will have their ups and downs. You'll have a time where you're not in sync with your partner and you're going to feel this dynamic, but it goes far into even our energies. And that's where I think, love can even be, try and keep that energy, try and keep that good vibe, recognize it for what it is. And rather than letting, I guess, your ego get in the way and making it more of a battle, how can you synchronize those 2 energies whenever there's a disagreement? Does it make sense?
I think that goes into the filling the bucket, though. That was really popular for a while. Was, make sure you're filling each other's buckets. It was really big with the kids, teaching each other how to be nice to each other. And it's basically, okay, is this filling someone's bucket, building them up? Or is this taking out of their bucket, breaking them down? And you can kind of see that within a relationship even. And okay, is how I'm acting adding to my relationship, or is it taking away from?
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of where I'm thinking.
Well, I think to bring this full circle of talking about what you guys, both of you just mentioned, I think goes with it really well of we have to be able to talk about it. We have to be able to open up and say, hey, something feels off between you and I. Dr. John Gottman talks about in his book, Science of Trust, and it talks about the attachment within a couple and talks about how there are these doors that are, I don't totally remember, open doors and closed doors, something like that, right? And these are bids for attention. These are bids for connection, bids for communication. And I think if we have a relationship where we are not aligned, like you said, Sonia, with our partner, right? We're not connecting. We're not having these times where we are in sync and we feel this, oh, that feels good moments. And so I think we have to be, and again, in the therapy room, this is oftentimes what we see, and our job is to brainstorm and say, okay, where are we off? Where are we disconnected? And how do we get back to the form of connection? Right? So whether we're disconnected with finances, or we're disconnected with sex, or we're disconnected with the kids, how do we get back on the same page and get those. I got a little lost on the wave metaphor, but I think I would have liked it if I would have stayed with it. How do we get the waves back in sync?
Correct. So you can get that energy together and make a greater energy. Okay. So one thing though, I want to go further back before we start talking about in therapy, before we start talking about the surface level issues, which is money, kids, sex. We need to go back spiritually, whatever that means to everyone, energy wise, whatever. And like you said, get that vibe back in sync, get those waves back in sync. What prevents us from doing that? I mean, and I think if you are mindful, if you study, or if you know, either one of you do any type of work that has mindfulness involved, what keeps us from actually getting into that higher vibration level is our ego. And tell me if you do not see this in the therapy room as well. Sometimes when it's even discussing surface level issues, what keeps people from working together? Their ego. So we need to go back to work on ourselves, make sure that we're in that level to be able to open up, right? I mean, isn't that what love is about? Just like opening up, no judgment, no
being vulnerable.
There we go. Being vulnerable. And we're just not used to being vulnerable, whether it's because of trauma, you know, learned behaviors, learned relationship behaviors from our parents. We're not used to being vulnerable. And what does vulnerable mean? What do you give up when you're vulnerable? One thing. Power.
Any sort of protection.
Power. Yep. The power to feel, you know, the protection, the power to know what's going to happen. So,
well, and I think
just not go meditate.
But I think that even goes. You just opened up a real large can, right? That is really, like, for me, I don't work with a lot of couples. I've worked with my handful. I have a handful right now. But I think that a lot of the couple work comes down to the individual, right? And how do we have a healthy relationship if we have completely, and again, not perfect, but we have large bits that feel unhealthy. Is I can't work with a couple if I see the distrust in both people, right? And I think that comes back down to, what are the trauma responses, right? Where did we learn, and when did we learn that the world is not safe to open up to? Because I think we have to work on that, like you're saying, work on that first before we can help the couple mesh their waves. That doesn't mean you can't be married if there's unhealthy stuff. It just means when it comes down to working and gaining health.
So, but that is one of my biggest challenges, though. Not only with working with couples, just working with individuals, is giving up that part where you're going to be vulnerable, that part, moving past that. It seems like instead of moving from going back to the beginning and working our way towards a healthier resolution, they want to get stuck on the surface level stuff. So it's really difficult. It's this me against them in a relationship. It's like, were you guys ever friends? Did you guys ever like each other? And I'm sure that yes, the answer is always yes. But how do we get back there? And then when couples don't want to get back there.
And I think you're seeing my love for IFS come forward.
Okay.
Right? IFS talks about the parts, and how do we engage with that part that doesn't want us to go there, right? What pain does that part hold that does not allow it to move forward?
So Nico, you say IFS. Instead of having our listeners go up and go out and Google IFS, give us a little bit more about that.
So IFS is called Internal Family Systems. And the whole idea of internal family systems is working with the natural psychological parts. Thank you, Alex, for the language. Alex wrote that on our website, so I copied it. And the whole idea is that we all go through life doing our best. We all go through life making it to the next day. And as humans, we have moments when we feel really rejected or really hurt or really something. And when that emotion gets so strong, we essentially shut it into the corner. Okay. So I describe it to my clients as if, let's imagine there's this boardroom, and in the boardroom, there's all these little parts. There's a 5-year-old you. There's a 5-year-old who remembers dad screaming at her. Okay. There's a 7-year-old who remembers mom pushing her out of the room or him out of the room. There's all of these different wounded parts. And because the emotion in those parts is so strong, we shut them away so that no one can ever trigger them again. And then we allow these defense mechanisms to come in place. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. It's super hard to do succinctly. But the whole idea is that we all have different parts of ourselves and they serve different purposes. There's no part that's good or there's no part that's bad.
A simple version of it is the movie Inside Out. And how Riley has the different emotions.
Yes.
And that's putting it extremely simply.
Extremely, yeah.
Extremely simply. But it's roughly the same idea.
Yeah,
because
the idea that
Bong and everybody else that's working behind the scenes as well.
Yes. A more complicated and yet pretty accurate is the movie Soul that Disney put out.
Oh, I haven't watched that yet.
To see that.
Super confusing, but I do think it aligns pretty well with IFS. So when I say IFS, that's what I'm talking about is internal family systems, and it's all about working with our parts. When I go to my fridge and part of me wants to eat the whole gallon of ice cream and the other part's saying, no, you fat ass, get up. No, go run, right? Those are two parts who are competing.
Ice cream will always win.
Oh, freaking amen. Hashtag COVID weight. So that's what I talk about. And with couples, oftentimes they'll say, hey, I think we need a little bit of a break. Me and you will go do some work. You and this other therapist will do some work. And then we'll come back and we'll say, okay, ooh, that part feels really threatened. Let's calm it down. Now let's talk about money, sex, whatever.
Okay. So another thing that I wanted to talk about when we're talking about love, and Alex, you are the one that introduced me to this. Well, I think we all know a little bit about this subject and about this method, but you sent me something in writing that really broke it down and I could use it. Gottman's love languages, right?
Oh, get it, Daddy.
Alex is like, what? What
did I do? Yeah. So those, I have to grab my book because I always forget all 5.
That's been very helpful. What Alex is gonna tell us has been really helpful when working with couples and sometimes even when working with families, just to understand each other's love language. Because sometimes we have expectations that are unrealistic for the other person in our life.
Well, and that's the funny thing is I found the one that I have for children before I found the couples one. And I know I don't work with couples. I have it because I'm married. I wanted to read it. So, but the love languages are the exact same for both. And it's words of affirmation, acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, and physical touch. And what's really cool for couples is that you can actually go to Gottman's website. I don't see it listed. 5lovelanguages.com. And it's the number 5, not written out. And there you can find the love languages test for you and your person to do and what it to fill out. And what it does is it helps you identify what your primary love language is. And that is how you feel loved the most. And that's not saying that the other 4 are not important. They are. You need all 5 to have that secure love feeling. But one is always going to be stronger than the others. And then for kids, it gets a little trickier, kids and teens, because there's not a test. Kids inherently are selfish to have their needs met. That's just how they're wired to survive in life. And so it's up to you as the parent to figure out which one, kind of listen to what are they saying commonly? Oh, I wish that we could go to the park. It'd be so much fun. So-and-so always gets to go to the park. And so it's like, okay, well, it sounds like quality time is pretty important for this child. And kind of going off of that for the kids.
So isn't it like, okay, so it's quality time, doing touching, service. Acts of service.
Yeah.
Okay.
Acts of service. Yeah. Physical touch, gifts, and words of affirmation. So for words of affirmation, it's just complimenting each other, saying, hey, I really appreciate that you did the dishes. Even though you expect someone to do the dishes, it's still saying, I appreciate this of you. Or, you know, hey, it looks like you had a really, really hard day at work. I really appreciate that you're working hard for our family. You know, something like that. Quality time is just spending time with each other, you know, and giving each other that one-on-one attention. It can be watching TV. It can be, you know, you're going for a walk together. It could be going on a date. You know, it can be really anything. Gifts, it doesn't always have to be I'm buying you something. It is really nice.
Yes,
it does. Okay, for you maybe.
No,
but Gottman stresses that it doesn't have to be you constantly buying a person things. It can be, you know, instead, hey, I made you a cake or something. And then let's see, acts of service, you know, helping each other out with household chores, whatever else. Hey, your car needed a wash, so I got it a wash. And then physical touch
is dishes.
Yeah. Physical touch isn't just sex. It's
although it is part of it.
Yes, it's part of it, totally. But it's not the entirety of it.
Okay. With that, I have to say the largest sex organ, guys. What is the largest sex organ? So we'll understand about touch.
The skin.
Yes, Nico. Okay. Why do I feel when Alex says all this? Why do I feel that women want all 5 love languages in their relationship?
Because you need all 5.
Well, no, but it's like I think we want the quality time. We want the gifts. We want the touch. We want, you know, the acts of service.
Are we talking about women in general? Or are we talking about moms?
Oh,
because I feel like moms
going
especially want this because we're
Nico,
taking care of so many people.
Oh my God, Nico, why is this different for you? Tell
I'm gonna be dancing. No. My wife's gonna be a mom.
Where is this taking you, Nico? Where do you feel it in your body? Yeah. Okay. No, just kidding. Okay.
Breathe. Drink some coffee. Breathe. You'll be okay. It's first time parent is scary, but you'll be okay.
So, Nico, because you're feeling this, I want you to just transition us into the chemistry of love.
Okay. Well, thank you. I'm sweating now. Why? I wasn't even actually panicking. I was just being funny.
There we go.
Maybe I am.
So the theory, fake it till you make it, is legit true.
Yeah, no.
You probably were secretly panicking a little.
Probably.
That's normal.
No, I wanted to talk about the chemistry piece of it, the chemistry of love. And one of my favorite hormones that's in the human body is oxytocin. And the Gottman Institute actually studies this a lot, as does Barb Fredrickson. She wrote the book Love 2.0. And it's all about learning what happens when we feel loved, right? When we feel seen, when we feel vulnerable, when we are, whether it be family, friends, spouse, whatever, choose your topic or choose your relationship type. When we feel loved, and again, any of those love languages, we have increased oxytocin, increased heart rate, which then decreases the stress hormone, increases the vagus nerve or the vagal tone, which is what we've talked about in previous podcasts, or breathing and yoga and all those things. And then the coolest thing is that when we feel loved or that we feel like we are loving someone, our glucose levels in our body actually regulate, is what they found. And so just some of these
diabetics should have a lot of love.
They should be getting that love all the time. But no, just that idea of, it's not, again, like we said, it's not just sex, right? It could be, I think of in Europe where guys hold hands and that's just normal, right? And that sense of that physical sense of connection, non-sexual physical sense of connection, and how great that is for the human body and what that does for our brain. And we talk about, Alex, I see you want to say something. Let me just get this out there and then you can go. We talk about trauma, right? When I used to work with kiddos with trauma, I would have them wear a little heart rate monitor on their finger when we were working. And as soon as that would start to spike, we would go out and swing on the play set, right? Because what we were trying to do is reteach their brains, what does it feel like to regulate, right? And that sense of connection that, hey, bud, I see, like putting my hand on, you can't see this in the camera, but putting my hand on their back, I see you, I'm with you, right? That's physical sense of connection, love, then increases oxytocin and decreases all these stress hormones, which how freaking cool is that?
Oh, I was just gonna say I like how in a lot of European countries too.
Yeah,
I think this is more Western European than like towards Russia. Is the kiss, and the kiss is a greeting, kiss is a goodbye. Yep.
Oh.
Yes. Well, and to bring it even another level, since I'm gonna be a dad, oxytocin when the baby is being born. Right. And the skin to skin contact. The reason that helps is because with the skin to skin contact, the oxytocin level in the mom and the baby's system goes up, which then decreases and regulates the heart rate, the stress hormone, glucose, which then I work with a lot of birth trauma, allows the birth to be less traumatic in the long haul. Right.
It also helps baby regulate its entire body. That's why baby-friendly hospitals are getting to be such a big, huge thing.
Yes.
Is because they're finally realizing what all us therapists knew for a long time.
Yeah. Hello. Nico, I have a question. So can you explain, and I'm curious too, because I have no idea, the butterflies in the stomach when you're in love?
Ooh, yes.
Alex?
Ooh. Isn't that more of the nervous system?
I didn't eat any butterflies. Like that's legit where my thought
Isn't that a nervous system reaction though?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I'm trying to think. My, and again, I don't know. So I'm kind of brainstorming here, but my gut would say, my gut would say that is the vagus nerve being triggered. Right? Because if you think about when we ask clients to breathe, we ask them to breathe into their lower stomach, right? Not their chest. And then we ask them to breathe to the lower stomach because that's where the vagus nerve gets initiated. So when we breathe, we initiate the vagus nerve, right? So my wondering is when we are feeling in love, AKA when I get butterflies, that vagus nerve is being activated, which means I'm in love, which is increasing the oxytocin level and decreasing all the other systems.
Well, go ahead. Hold up though, because sometimes that butterflies in the stomach feelings happens when you're nervous. Yeah. You're going to go on stage for something or perform, or sport.
Yeah. Before I, as I'm sweating right now, before we do a podcast on live air.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's part of our nervous system as well. So is it? I mean, when you get butterflies, in your stomach. When you meet someone or when you like someone, does it always necessarily mean that you have the good vibes? Could it also mean that there's some bad vibes and you're just misinterpreting it?
I would think so. I mean, if the butterfly feeling happens when you're nervous for something, outside of a romantic sort of situation like sports or podcasting or performing, I think that's something to take into account. And, it's not a fact. Our feelings and emotions, they're not facts. They're information for us to interpret. Yes. And everyone knows that interpretation is totally up for mistakes.
Well, and I think we have to, right? That's kind of how I do everything in my field in our field is that this is generally speaking, right? There's always space for change, for different opinions. And I think a part of that, again, like my head could go to, okay, maybe that's the oxytocin, the vagus nerve, but we also have to remember that the human gut has over 1 million nerve cells, right? And so if the brain has all these nerve endings and these nerve connections, so does the gut, right? And so the gut, and it's learning how does our gut speak to us? Okay. So when I feel those butterflies, is that my gut teaching me that I'm in love? Is it teaching me that I need to be worried?
Okay.
I don't know. I wonder.
Self-awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And willing to be curious too about, okay, what's going on in this situation that is causing this feeling? Is it the good version? Is it the bad version?
Yes.
Sort of a thing.
Yes. So all of that to say, that felt a little bit all over the place, but overall I'm happy with where we went. Before we end our podcast today, is there any practical tips we have for loving yourself, loving others, and loving your partners?
I think my favorite between my husband and myself is we will sit down every couple of nights, sometimes every night, depending on what's going on in the week, and no TV. Maybe we'll turn on some like mood music of some kind, and just sit and talk.
Oh, we are set in the mood.
I love it. Well, okay. Usually it's like Sigur Rós or some sort of
love it.
Some sort of more just instrumental stuff, just as background, because it distracts the dogs from noises.
But that sense, you have that sense of connection that you really appreciate with him.
Yeah, but yeah, and the one thing that I kind of just ask myself is when we're talking, it's like, why not risk it? You know, let's see what's gonna happen, and kind of just throw whatever it is out there that I want to say that I'm feeling vulnerable about. And just toss it out there and see what happens. Knowing that if it's not well received, I either said it in a way that was not very beneficial to either of us, or I'm going to be okay afterwards because I'm fine. It's me.
A sense,
I got my
you
back.
get a sense of connection in there, and then that is reassuring in itself.
Yeah. And it's, I tried. Maybe it worked out. Most of the time it works out. Sometimes it doesn't. And that's not anything on me outside of maybe phrasing it wrong.
Yeah. I would say, well, first of all, self-love. I mean, you have to learn how to love yourself before you can love anyone else. And then in the moment when you are spending time with someone or you have a relationship that you really like, just enjoy it. Try and let go of the expectations. Try and let go of it has to look this way. Just enjoy the moment and just be present.
Yes. I think yes to both of you. I think that idea, and I really loved Barb Fredrickson's take on it in her book, Love Point 2.0. And the idea that sometimes we have to learn to trust that feeling, right? To say, this feels really good. And I don't have to figure it out. I can just enjoy it and I can lean into it. And things will come up and we know we'll address them then and enjoy it while it's there. I think one of my favorite things my partner and I do is just to do the things we love. We love Disney. We are all about Disney. And
you don't say. You just say it like 3 times a year. Yeah.
True.
I was gonna say, I think you live there.
I love Disney too.
I mean, I would love to live
Disney's
there
awesome.
in the underground tunnel. But that idea of, like, for us, it's our mutual love for Disney that allows us to learn together. Watching videos about, how do the underground tunnels work, right? And like that kind of thing. It brings us together and it helps us feel connected, and we enjoy it. And I don't know why, but we enjoy it. And so my takeout for today would be kind of along Sonia's thing of trust the process, trust yourself, trust when it feels good, when it feels bad, learn that, and be able to call that out. And I think to bring this full circle is trust your voice in the matter. If it doesn't feel good to you, do some work or get out. If it does feel good to you, lean into it.
Oh, and at the end of the day too, you're the person that you have to live with. So be nice to yourself, love yourself, trust yourself to know that if there is a situation that is not the best, then you can get out of it and you can take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Or also stop relying or wanting to finding other people's perspective or trying to keep other people happy in that relationship. I mean, if you're happy, so be it. So everyone's always going to have expectations as to what it should look like. And just remember that that's their lived experience. It's not yours. So do what's best for you.
Yeah. So guys, that is all the time we have for today. Thank you for listening to our very first live stream. We'll see how it goes or how it went. But please feel free to reach out and let us know the things that were helpful and things that were not. We do want to, again, this is an experiment of enjoying this process. And so we want to have fun with it, but we also want to make it helpful. So thank you for listening. We hope you have a great day. And that's all we have about love. And your therapist said, what?
Take care.